Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. So we've had some interesting news from the Warhammer community on the 7th of April, and it's to do with our faction roles and detachments. So we're going to go through the website, go through the article. There's a little bit on there that relates to Tyranid, so we're going to be talking about that as well. So let's get straight into this, getting into this article. 7th of April 2023, faction roles are leaner and cleaner in the new edition of Warhammer 40k. So part of this that was quite interesting is, well, starting from here really. On top of this, every faction gets an army ability regardless of the detachment you're using. So Orcs, for example, get the War, Tyranids here are getting Synapse, which we saw in that Termagant datasheet preview that was released a few weeks ago. Astral Militarum get Orders, and Space Marines get Oath of Moment. So they're given the example for the Space Marines in this particular part of the article, what Oath of Moment actually is. So army-wide, as their army rule for Adeptus Astartes as a faction, at the start of the command phase, they select one unit from your opponent's army. Each time a model from your army with this ability makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, you can reroll hit rolls and you can reroll wound rolls. That's a massive ability, in fact, literally doing a ton of damage on a single unit every single turn. Now, that's the Space Marine version of what they've got, where the Tyranids have got the Synapse ability. Now, they've not confirmed what Synapse will be for 10th edition, but the likelihood is it's going to relate to Battle Shock or something along those lines. Of course, we've got Synapse as well as Shadows in the Warp as our main abilities from 9th edition. In fact, when we go further down this page, you will see that there is some more relevance to that. So it goes on to exploring detachments. The Tyranids begin their adventures in the new edition as an invasion fleet, focused on swift evolution and overwhelming offense. The invasion fleet's detachment role is hyper adaptations, which provides 3 different abilities you can choose from each battle, depending on what you're fighting. So this is going to replace our Hive fleets. So no longer will we have the Kraken Hive fleet, the Leviathan Hive fleet, for example. We're going to have these more unique Hive fleets, and the one example they've given us today is the Invasion Hive fleet, and their detachment role is the hyper adaptation. So let's go through what the hyper adaptations are, because there's quite a bit to digest with this part. So at the start of the first battle round, select one of the following hyper adaptations to be active for Tyranid units for your army until the end of the battle. Bear in mind, this is the invasion fleet abilities. There will be other fleets as soon as the codex drops, but this is the one they're previewing today. So you've got 3 options here. The first option is Swarming Instincts. So each time a Tyranid model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy infantry or an enemy swarm unit, the attack has sustained hits ability, or the sustained hits 1 ability. So before continuing, we should really work out what sustained hits 1 actually means. So they do discuss it. Where is it? It's on this paragraph here. Swarming Instincts add the sustained hits 1 ability to attacks against infantry and swarms, landing an extra blow whenever you score a critical hit, which is the new way of saying an unmodified hit roll of a 6. That is now a critical hit. So whenever you score a critical hit, when you've selected Swarming Instincts, you're going to be getting an additional attack and an additional hit when you do score that roll of a 6. So that of course is going to be working against infantry and swarms if you are selecting Swarming Instincts. Now if you were to select the second option here, which is the hyper aggression, each time a Tyranid model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy monster or vehicle unit, that attack has the lethal hits ability. So that's another new ability here that's going to be connected to the weapons, so we should really go over that as well. So if targets are tough, such as vehicles and monsters, you can instead pick hyper aggression and add lethal hits to your attacks against them, meaning you'll automatically wound on a crucial hit. So any rolls of a 6 to hit against monsters or vehicles will be automatically wounding, which I think is absolutely mega crazy, because not only are we going to have our big guns and big melee attacks that are going to be quite comfortably wounding certain models, we've now also got the little bugs that can also do the same. If you've got 30 Hormagaunts, for example, going up against a monster, any 6s to hit will automatically wound. So you don't need to roll, a 5 or a 6 to wound the damn thing. It's going to literally just wound it automatically because you've got the hyper aggressive as your detachment ability. Now that's the second option. You have to choose one of these. There is a third option here. We're still not entirely sure what this third option actually will be meaning, but we're going to get into this now. Hive Predators. Each time a Tyranid model with a hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy character unit, if a critical hit is scored, that attack has the Precision ability. Now they've not explained what the Precision ability actually is, We also don't know how the Lookout Sir ability is going to be interacting with 10th edition. And also there's something else to add to this which we will... In fact, we'll talk about it now because we'll come back to all this stuff in a moment. Right at the very end, they mention... Where is it? Allow a commander to enhance the unit they are leading. Then there's a little part here. Hold the phone. Did we just say leading units? Find out next week. Da, 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 da. So this is just speculation here, but does this mean that a character is going to be leading units? Kind of like some of the old editions we had previously. Not really sure what that could mean and how it also could relate to that precision ability with the weaponry. But we've got 3 options here, but that second one does feel very scary. Hyper aggression. Now this is the part here where they talk about Synapse and Shadow in the Warp. For their army ability, the Tyranids can manipulate battle shock tests. So in fact they have explained it slightly with Synapse and Shadow in the Warp. Although I didn't see Shadow in the Warp in the Termagon preview for the datasheet. I might be wrong there. I don't believe I saw that. I only believe I saw Synapse, not Shadows in the Warp. But we'll find out what those are when we have a closer look at the Tyranid faction next month. Okay, so we'll get back to that at some point later on when they decide to release an article. So then we go on to stratagems and enhancements. So these stratagems are going to be related to your detachment as well as the enhancements in fact. So if you've got the Invasion Hive Fleet as your detachment, you're going to have Invasion Hive Fleet stratagems and Invasion Hive Fleet enhancements. You're not going to be able to mix and match with other Hive Fleet stratagems. And also you're going to have the menu of 12 core stratagems on top of that. It should all come into one single page. It's going to be very nice and easy to follow, especially if you are a new player. Now they do have an example of a Space Marine stratagem. I just want to go through this because even though this isn't a Tyranid stratagem, there is some key elements here that we can take from this to relate it to the Tyranid Codex, I suppose. They've actually changed how the stratagems are going to appear now, which I think is quite a nice change. First of all, it says when. So when can you actually use this stratagem? There have been some situations with past stratagems where it wasn't entirely clear when you can use it or at what part of the phase or which shooting phase. Was it your shooting phase, your opponent's shooting phase? They've now made that more clear. They put it there in your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase, and there's also icons on the side of the stratagem itself. That's the shooting phase with the target there, and with these 2 Warhammer looking things, that will be for the fight phase. You've then got the CPU usage there, so it's going to cost 1 command point of course. So you've got the when, you've got the target. One Adeptus to start his unit from your army that was selected as a target, one or more of the attacking units attacks. So that's who you're going to be using it on, and the effect it's going to have until the end of the phase. Each time an enemy unit targets your unit, worsen the AP characteristic by 1. So they've effectively brought back Armor of Contempt, but it's as a stratagem. And bear in mind, AP in 10th edition is going to be completely different to what we've seen in 9th edition. 9th edition, it got well out of hand. Everything had AP. It's going to be a rarity in the game for 10th edition. So this stratagem, in fact, will be pretty good. They then talk about some of the enhancements. Again, you're going to be using specific Hive Fleet enhancements. So the Invasion Hive Fleet will have its own enhancements. And they've given the example with Space Marines here with the Artifice Armor, giving a 2+ with a 5+ Feel No Pain save. But yeah, we're going to have unique Tyranid specific Invasion Hive Fleet enhancements as well as the stratagems. It's not going to be a mix and match having, 36. How many stratagems did we have? We're not going to have like 2 to 4 pages of stratagems to remember. It's going to be 6 and 6 only. And then you've got the 12 core stratagems. So you only need to remember 18, and 12 of them are going to be known throughout the game by everyone because they are the core stratagems that everybody uses. So yeah, a little bit more confirmation about how Hive Fleets are going to work. They've still not exactly pinpointed what other Hive Fleet options we're going to have. They just said when a codex does get released, there will be more detachments. They've now classed it as a detachment rather than a Hive Fleet. But the name of that detachment that they've given us is the Invasion Hive Fleet. So guys, just a little bit of information for you today. Other than that, all that's left to say, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.